left when you look back on your career with the Philadelphia
Flyers. 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
Pattison Ave! Turn it up! Let's go! Morning in Philly, we run this show. Hey, Joe Marks, James scores on the glow. Eagles fly, Phil swing, let it roll. Flyers crash, Sixers light up the floor. Philly, hey, shout it on the air. Pattison Ave, we're already there.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to this edition of the Pattison Ave Sports Show. I'm your host, James Scores, and with you, and with me, as always, is my group of companions, and we got a jam-packed show joining us here today. Joey Marks joining me once again. Joey, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, James. Good morning, Philadelphia. We have a very, very special guest here today on the Pattison Ave Sports Show. Mr. Playoff, one of the great Flyers players of all time, Mr. Brian Propp. Mr. Propp, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Everyone's doing well. Hopefully, it'll be a beautiful day, and we'll have a nice interview.
Absolutely. We really do look forward to talking to you. Obviously, we really do appreciate you coming on, joining us here today. So, Joey, you got the first questions ahead of you. So,
Yep.
let's start this bad boy off, man.
So, Brian, you had an illustrious career with the Philadelphia Flyers.
when you look, Joe.
When you look back at it, what are some of the key things that stand out to you?
Well, I was really young when I got drafted. That was only one league because the NHL merged for the World Hockey Association the year before. And so the way, I was a good player in junior, like I won a couple scoring things, and then just for Brandon Wheat Kings, and had powerful teams, and then of course getting drafted by the Flyers at that time. I was working on the farm, and I just got a call to see who I landed to, because it's so different now. But I was happy to get there when I was with the Flyers, because at that time I knew that Bob Clarke was one of the best leaders around, and the Flyers were in the playoffs every year. And so for me, it was just good to get drafted. I was really quiet. I didn't say much at the start. I was naive, and going to Philadelphia, just to hang up with Frank Bathe, and that's how we just kind of got started there. But for my first year, it was pretty amazing because I was playing with Reggie Leach and Bob Clarke on the line in my first 20 games, and then Bob Clarke was helping me, and then my first game I scored against Bill Smith from the Islanders, and had an assist, and it was a game winner, and then we lost 9-2 against Atlanta, and so it was like, wow, is this what the NHL was going to be like? And then of course we went 35 without a loss, a streak that will never be broken, I'm sure. And it was good for there. And then we went to the finals against the Islanders that year, and so it was a good start for me. And I learned from the best with Bob Clarke teaching me and working hard, and it just was a good start of my career.
Now, it kind of might go without saying, because you just mentioned Bobby Clarke, but what were some players kind of growing up watching the sport that you idolized and you kind of patterned your play towards?
So I wasn't a big fan of hockey. Like, I just watched it. Like because in Canada we only had two channels, and one of them was snowy, and so but usually Saturday nights on NHL, I'd watch either Montreal or Toronto, because there weren't too many teams there at that time. But I really liked Jean Beliveau, because in Montreal, because he was such a good player and class act, and so I just really tried to model myself like that. of course, my dad was a really good hockey player, but he decided to be a minister. So he kind of stopped playing hockey for the senior hockey league. But he taught me all the things that I needed from the start. And so that's how I learned, because I grew up in Saskatchewan, Canada, a little town of Neudorf, 300 people, and you didn't know anything better. Like, you just had fun and played hockey and went to school and tried to do as good as you could. But my dad taught me the right way, how to be a good player and play forward and back and back check. And so that's why when I was 15 or 16, I led the league in the Saskatchewan Junior League for points, and broke all those records when I was really young. And I had Jerry James was the coach. He played he was a football player and a hockey player, NHL and a professional. And so I really learned a lot from that. But I always had good players, and so that was a good way to get started. And I was really young, and I couldn't drive because I wasn't allowed. I was like 15, and so my parents had to drive me all the time. And a small little town of about 20 miles away, you had to go back and forth, and so they sacrificed a lot just to be part of there. But my dad was a good player, and so like I learned from the best, and that's why I became a consistent player.
So, speaking of consistent player, you were definitely a consistent player in the playoffs, known as Mr. Playoffs. You went to 5 Stanley Cup finals, in your career. What do you kind of point to when it comes down to being that successful in the playoffs? Because as we know with the Flyers now, and even in the last, 20 or so years, it is difficult to get into the playoffs. It's even more difficult to get to the Stanley Cup finals. Some teams have the immense talent to be able to do it, like Florida and Edmonton lately. But, back then, what was your biggest thing that you feel like you did to be able to be that consistent during the playoffs?
Yeah, so of course it was all with playing with the right players. Like I said, I mentioned when I first started, I won the first game was with Bob Clark and Reggie Leach, and then it switched with Kenny Linsman and Paul Holmgren. So balanced line mates, and then in the '80s with Dave Poulin and Tim Kerr, and then Tocchet and Zelzel and a bunch of those players. So playing with the good players and right coaches. Like Pat Quinn was my first coach, and I really enjoyed him. And then, of course, Keenan was in the mid '80s, and then Paul Holmgren after that. And then they went to Boston and Minnesota, and then Hartford. And so it's all about the good coaching and just being consistent. But I think with the Flyers, like the character was good, and they had tough teams, and everyone was known for that. Like, they were scared of playing against the Flyers in the Spectrum. So it was an advantage that we had. But like you mentioned for the playoffs, like I know the Flyers are right next to the playoffs with 10 games left. And so hopefully they have to just keep winning. But the goalie's been playing really well for them. They're keeping them in games. And, it would be a shame if they didn't get into the playoffs, because Tocchet's been doing a good job as a new coach for the Flyers. And they have the younger guys that are going to keep getting better every year. So I'm just looking forward to like the playoffs this year, because in the 80s there's less teams, and like now there's 32 teams, and everything's balanced, and the hockey's a little faster, and they can't get hit as much. But and then when the overtime, like 3-on-3, I would love to play a 3-on-3. I don't know how many more goals I would have scored in 3-on-3, but and then the shootouts, and so, but it depends on point here and there could make a big difference.
Before we get to your question, James, we want to promote a golf outing that you're having in early May. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Where that's going to be? And all the details about that for our audience?
Yeah, so I'm running my own golf tournament. It's at River Winds Golf Club in West Deptford, and it's every day. It's every May, like a day after Mother's Day. So it'll be May 11th this year, and so I have great support from the organization and people that I've known. But it benefits the stroke center of University of Pennsylvania, because like I had a massive stroke like 10 years ago, couldn't talk or walk. And so I've come a long way from that. But the support that University of Penn has, and the people that I have, it'll be a really good successful this year, because like almost sold out. I have 1 or 2 foursomes left. And of course, the Flyers and the Flyers charities are supporting me, and so it's a good golf tournament. It's foursomes, and you take the best drive, and then you play your own ball from there, and then you play best 2 out of 4 shots, and no mulligans, and so like people don't have to cheat. So, but it's good prizes, and it raises a lot of money for the Stroke Center of University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
That sounds
James,
incredible.
You have some questions for Mr. Propp?
I do. So Brian, I think the best stretch of the season has happened to this point with this Flyers team, and we had on Jim Jackson right around the Olympic break here. I think the one thing that the Flyers did do was that they were desperately needing of a recharge here at that time when they were starting to struggle right before the Olympic break here. But for the Flyers right now, to try to get back into that postseason picture here, how can they keep that motivation going, especially in postseason play, that even though that could actually come back and hurt them, especially those games that they lost during the season?
Yeah, so like it's a tough schedule, and everything's so close, but they have to find a way at the last 10-day games just to be consistent. Like the goalie that's been playing is out of his mind, which is what is helps. But you just get in the playoffs now. You never know. Like you get a hot goaltender, and then you get some guys that can score a little bit more. And for me, like when I went to the playoffs, like I always was consistent scorer. I came with the attitude to score almost every game, but it had help with a sport psychologist, Steve, that we had for the Flyers in the 80s, and Mark Howe and Brad McCrimmon used them too. So that made a big difference of just thinking the right way and how to be consistent and how to be better. So I'm hoping that they get in this year, because you never know. It gives them a chance, and you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the last time I can remember is like 2010 when the Flyers were a 7th seed, and they pushed that all the way to the postseason and made a historical comeback against Boston. And I mean, anything is possible in the playoffs, especially for like teams that are like 7 to 8 teams that want to get back in postseason play here. So that's the most important thing. But I think the other thing, too, that really sticks out to me the most is that, do you believe that the Flyers' young players will actually develop more and more if they make this postseason picture, if it comes down to it, Brian?
Yeah, because like they have a really young team, and so like it may be 1 or 2 players that they're missing, but it could make a difference. But it's tough with the contracts that they have, because they sign all the better players for a lot of years after, and they locked them in. And so, but they're young guys, they play hard, and they're fun to watch, which is what we needed for the new rink. And so everyone's excited for the playoffs, and the support of the Flyers has been outstanding. Ever since I came to the Flyers in 79, 80, the people here have been really good to me. Because most of the time, we lived in New Jersey. The practice rink is in Voorhees, and we had places there. And so, like for me, like I moved to Marker Island, Florida, for the winter, where it's a little warmer. But I have a place in Seattle City for the summer. So after my golf tournament in May, I'll be back in New Jersey at Seattle City, and for golf and other events that I have. And like I run some cigar events and some charity golf, and just a lot of things going on throughout the year. And so like I'll be in New Jersey for June, July, and August, and I'm enjoying that. And but the Flyers fans are really, really good.
Yeah, and you talked about earlier about your success within the playoffs and just your overall success had a lot to do with the coaching and a lot to do with the players. And you already touched on that, this team has a nice young nucleus and is still growing. And there are some issues with trying to get and build more talent around this young nucleus because of some of the longer contracts that some of these teams are signing their stars for. Jim Jackson had mentioned that when we talked to him. My question to you is, Tocchet, Keith Jones, Danny Briere, some of these older veteran, very experienced ex-Flyers players. Do you think having these young stars around some of these experienced players that have not only played hockey but have played hockey in Philadelphia, do you think that will help these kids kind of, take their talents to the next level, that we could still have some of those superstars laying in wait with some of these young players?
Yeah, I definitely think so because like you need a veteran player. Like the younger guys, like they're having to be playing, but they have to learn, and it's a nice mix that the Flyers have always have had. Like the older players and the younger players, even like in the early '80s when with Kenny Linsman and Ben Wilson being drafted, and they were moving up, and with me being there, like it just drafting the right people with management near them and having fun. And of course, in the 80s, we didn't lose that much. And so it was fun to play every game. And because, my first 13 years in NHL, I made the playoffs every year, except for at the end with Minnesota and Hartford. But, it's nice to be in the playoffs every month, every year, and kind of go from there. But you learn from the veterans, and then you can when you have a chance, you have to make sure that you keep getting better. And as I said, when I was young, like went to the finals the first year, and then after the first couple of years after that, we lost against the Rangers in the first round, which was I was kind of getting blamed, but the goalies played really well. So I learned after that I had to be much better in the playoffs and be more prepared and be more of a better player, especially in the first round, because in the first round, a lot of these teams have tough matches, and bounce here and there makes a difference, and then they move on or out. And so I think just having the right leadership and playing with the right players, it just really does make a difference. And because that year Peters was a rookie that year too, because Bernie Pront got hurt the year before. And so it was new for Pat Quinn, but he did a good job of putting everything together and guiding everybody. And of course, with the right leaders like with Bob Clark and a couple other guys, it just does make a big difference. And Briere and Jones have been doing a really good job because they know hockey so well, especially for the younger players, because they know they need to have speed and force all the time. So like that's the way they're doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, like you talked about a lot of the players that you played with, and some of the coaches that you were around, and a lot of the names you're mentioning are Hall of Famers and like bona fide guys that stand out so much so in Flyers lore and Flyers history. And it's like when we think about Keith Jones, Danny Briere, Rick Tocchet, there's a lot of there's a legacy that they have had in their careers too. So bringing some of that legacy to these younger players, I feel like it can teach them how to play hockey right. I played hockey when I was younger myself, and I only made it to juniors. I never made it further than that, but all the players that were around me were all like looking to the coaches and looking to each other to kind of like build and support our skill set. And so when you're around these kind of young kids, like 20 somethings, that are just trying to figure out the game and figure out the ways to win, I can imagine that being around the veterans like a Danny Briere, who has won, Keith Jones, who has won, Rick Tocchet, who has won, that having that winning mentality helps. I'm sure it helped you when you had your success around your teammates and the coaches to be successful getting into those playoffs all those years.
Yeah, it does make a difference. And again, like the Flyers have always had great membership, and like with Ed Snyder being part of the team for all those years, like he's loved by everybody. And but the people gave back because they understood that he tried to win as much as he could. He brought other players in at the end of the year, like the veterans that they were trying to win. And of course, it bounced here and there. Like I was in 5 Stanley Cup Finals, and it was tough in the '80s against the Islanders and the Oilers, and to win. But we figured out just how to be there. And so I think the people in Philadelphia enjoyed the effort that we would do, and so that's why the Flyers. Their effort is there every game, and so people enjoy that, and they support that.
Absolutely. James, if you want to pull up the graphic, we're going to talk a little bit more now about Brian Propp's book that he wrote, and Bobby Clark, as Brian had mentioned earlier, kind of wrote the foreword for your book. If you can, Brian, can you talk a little bit about your book and what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, so like after my career, I had AFib, and so the doctor Dorsheimer kind of knew that, and so I was on blood thinners, and so I didn't want to take blood thinners my whole life, and so I had an ablation of the heart, and it was a 6-hour operation, and so I thought after that was done, I would be okay, so I wouldn't have to take blood thinners my whole life. And unfortunately, a couple years later, I was visiting with some people at the school at the Navy counter for my son Jackson's school. And the first day I was okay. The second day I really had a bad headache, and I stayed out in the rented house. And that night, in the middle of the night, I fell out of bed. Hit the side of the bed, lost a tooth. All the years playing hockey, I never lost a tooth. And of course, I couldn't talk or walk at all. I didn't know where I was. And thankfully, my son called 911 pretty fast, and I was there pretty fast. And so I was there for 5 days, and then I went to McGee Rehab Hospital in Philadelphia, where I was there for 6 weeks, every day, trying to get better, but not being able to talk at all. It was difficult because you knew what you wanted to say, and you just couldn't get it out. And so it was a struggle at that time. It took me a year and a half to get better. And then after that, I was working with Bancroft, and so they did a video of me getting back on the ice and skating. So my right fingers on the right side still don't work, but I guess my feet work, and so I can still play hockey, and I can skate okay, but I can't shoot that well. But the goalies I play with aren't that good, so I can still score and do a good fall. And then I can play golf and go fishing, and I can do whatever I need. And so it was, but it was really tough at the start. And so I just talk about my faith, because my dad was a Lutheran minister. He preached in English and German every month, every Sunday. And I have 2 brothers and sisters. We're all 13 months apart, so we had a lot of support from that. And then, of course, a little bit of hockey, because of all the Flyers support that I had, and the alumni that helped me support that. And then, of course, my stroke and how I recovered from my stroke, because Wayne Fish wrote the book with me, because a couple of years before that, Chris Terrian wrote a book too. And so, of course, Wayne gave me the idea to do a book, because I didn't really talk about a hockey book, but having a stroke and how I recovered made a big difference. So they put it together really, really well. And it just really, if anybody wants, they can go to Amazon or Indigo in Canada and order the book, because it tells a good story. And I know a lot of people that have strokes, and I try to talk to them all the time. and it gives them a lot of hints about how I got better in my book, and so like they can learn from that.
Wow, that's a great that's just an incredible story, gonna admit. I I guess the question I would ask you too here, Brian, is that obviously, like you talked about what happened back like 10, 11 years ago with the stroke that you had. And I have to say right now, like hearing you talk about this is really an incredible story. And I have to say right now, it kind of gives me like a little bit of chills here to think about that. I actually had a family member tragically, like we lost her 2 years ago due to a cardiac arrest, and how you were able to back from that is nothing short of amazing here. But the thing I want to ask you too is that, um, like, what kind of advice would you give young people who are dealing with stroke or like dealing with AFib or anything like in that situation there, and try to give them some positivity here during those obstacles that you can that there is another flip side of that coin. There's also like good things that could happen to people that are that are going through that. Like, what kind of advice would you give those like people to try to give them a little bit of positivity during a trying time?
Yeah, so I would say that the brain needs to heal a little better. So they have to take their time because it doesn't work immediately. So they have to be patient with the brain, like I was, especially for me, I couldn't talk at all. With the speech therapist, I was there for an hour every day, just trying to say things, but you have to be patient, like, because I was really impatient because I wanted things to happen faster, but I was just happy to be alive after, like, because I should have died. The way the scan that the doctors had went into my brain in 3 different places, and they said I should have died. And so, like, I'm just lucky to be alive and still doing as well as I am. And you kind of get used to, I look okay. I'm fit, and I used to skate twice a week, and I still do all the things that I do. But people probably kind of forget about that I had a stroke, and because I've done a lot of things just to get better with speaking and everything else. But it was just. For people that are having strokes, I just tell them, be patient with themselves and keep up with their rehab. I mean, because a lot of people, when they get in the hospital, they stop their rehab, and it doesn't work. So they have to keep up with that and keep up the hope. We can never give up. Keep fighting. That's what I tell these people.
Absolutely.
So,
how did your mindset as an athlete help you during one of
how
those?
did being this athlete that you had, sometimes when you're an athlete, you have like a specific mindset. You brought up the never giving up, and when you're in a game or when you're in through a season, you're going to have your ups and your downs. How did that mentality as an athlete, as a former athlete, kind of help you through your recovery from your stroke?
Yeah, well, because I think being an athlete, your tradition is you learn how to prepare for everything. Like for me, medical, it was mentally, it was I was really strong with that, but I was always in good shape, and so like my heart beat would really slow, and I could recover pretty fast. So it's about doing the right workouts and trying to get better. And of course, the mental part is much better, tougher. But you learn with the people that you do just to get better. Like that's why the better players are a little smarter. They have to know where to go, where they're going to be positioning. And, of course, it helps plays with good players, but you can do a lot yourself just by mentally prepare for everything and never giving up. And so for me, like, I could at least walk, and so like I was finally able to go to the hospital like a month later, and so I could go into the dining room and eat my meals, and then I used to do at least water the plants, just something to do, because you had like 3 hours of occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapist, and so you have the rest of the day to kind of do by yourself. And so like just for me, being an athlete with the tradition that you have and the way that you work hard and never giving out, like it's much a difference than somebody that's kind of normal. And so you figure out ways how to get better, and especially with Google, it gives you a lot of things that you can talk. Or for me, after my stroke, I have a watchman in my heart, which kind of controls the beating of your heart on the left heart. And so that makes a big difference for me. I'm still on a blood thinner and a small aspirin, but other than that, like the little things that I've done to help me get better has really made a difference.
Absolutely. So you brought up about some of your motivational speaking, and I mean, just listening to you now and saying how hard it was for you to kind of get yourself back to being able to speak in general. You speak very clearly, very well. With any of the motivational speaking that you do, what's one of the bigger messages that you kind of try and deliver to people? And number two, do you have any kind of speaking events coming up anytime soon?
Yeah, so I just redid my brianpropp.com website. There's lots of information on that. There's a lot for information of my golf tournament, my day-to-day and speaking and events and things like that. So like I live in Marker Island, so like I kind of go fishing almost every day when it's nice out, and enjoy that because it's sunny and warm. And but I just did a charity hockey event in Melbourne, Florida, with 7 other alumni, like with the teams there. And then so like and I ran my own hockey event in Aston but I just missed a year because I'm going to do something a little different next year, because I have my golf tournament and that. And then of course I have cigar events, and I've got some speaking engagements. Like I know that at the end of April, I'm going to be at Yardley Country Club, for supporting a golf club. And then in May, like I have my golf tournament, and then like Ron Jaworski has his golf tournament, and then Brian Dawkins has his golf tournament in June, and so I'll be really busy. And our Flyers alumni, we have a big weekend, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. We'll probably have like 50 or 60 Flyer former alumni, and it's going to be a pickleball, and then one day, and then it's going to be a run, walk, and bike, and then our golf tournament is at DuPont that Monday, the 15th. And so it's good to connect with a lot of people that I know from the Flyers alumni, because I'm on the board of the Flyers alumni. And I'm sure that the Flyers alumni will have a foursome at my golf tournament this coming year, and so I'm looking forward to that. But giving back and do some speaking and getting the opportunities just to tell my story. So like, I'm working on, like, if I can do a speech about a little bit about hockey and my stroke and I recovered, it makes a big difference. I know one of the things that I've done is my wife owns the franchise called Prime IV Hydration and Wellness in Marlton. And so like that's for IVs. And so they do one thing called the NED treatment. It's drips that can really help replace the cells in your body when you get older, and cleanses your whole system. And it just, that's why I'm talking as well as I can. I slow it down, and I can think, speak much clearer. And that ID drip, like, it does make a big difference. Like it just, it makes a difference. Just the energy that you have and everything else. So just little things that I've done just to get healthy. It just little things that people can do themselves, but don't.
James, do you have any final questions before we wrap it up with Brian?
Yeah, so I got one more here. So it's also like the same thing I brought up before with your book here. It feels like this book is like a life lesson story for a lot of people out there. And like it's like the greatest thing about sports and life is that it's kind of like you had like a rocky, like kind of material. I think it's kind of like Rocky, like how many times you got knocked down, you kept on getting back up here. And I think that's the beauty about Philadelphia sports and also about life in general too. So where can people find their this book at? One more time to see if like for anybody out there that want to read this book, because I gotta say right now it's really extraordinary to see how much you come through this, how much you got through this. Where can people find this book on? Is it on Amazon? Is it on like other uh, social media outlets, or where can people find it at?
Yeah, so I have some events like in the summer. Like I always have books with me, Angel on my wing. But yeah, most of the people can order it from Amazon. But in the summer, always have books with me, like for golf events and other events that I have. So I always have them with me. And like if they want a signed copy, well, like they can wait until I go to one of my events. But I think it's on Amazon, most in the U.S. and in Canada, it's Indigo. So a lot of people will order from Canada there. And, of course, on my brianpropp.com website, like it has a whole story of my book and the people that supported it. And like that's because there was a lot of Flyers alumni that did forwards, pages to support me at that time. Like there was like Dave Poulin and Paul Holmgren and, Dave Brown and you name it. And Tim Saunders, so like it just, they had a chance to tell a little about the story, and for hockey players, it's a good group of people, and then of course just having the book with Wayne Fish and telling a good story, it put together really well. The publishers in Chicago, and I still always have books with me all the time, and. But if everybody, if they want, I can go to my website and they can see if they want a signed copy. I know that Kevin Cady from the Partland, Maine, like he just visited me and he got a signed copy from him, and because it's a Flyers alumni. Most of the people I know have bought books from me, but you never, you can always promote it whenever they want. But yeah, Amazon and Indigo.
Yeah, so we will promote it on all our social media platforms. Once again, if you want to find that, go to Amazon.com or Indigo. One of the things that I will also say is with Hardcore, with my social media at Joe Wolf 112680. On Twitter and other social media platforms for Hardcore Sports Network and Streampunk Entertainment, you will find a lot of the companies and things that Brian is associated with. We'll be posting them out throughout the course of the weekend and the coming week. And please go buy the book from a person that's dealt with health issues, myself. And still trying to fight through it. About 4 years ago, I lost my sight, and very traumatically. I was able to see on Monday, not able to see on Thursday. So for that perspective, that's why I really, really urge people to go buy this book, because resiliency and fighting through what feels like a very uphill battle is always a difficult task from the day to day. And Brian is a key example of how that, kind of has persevered through all of it and kind of come out the other side. And, you always need to have that messaging whenever you wake up in the morning and you're fighting that battle. So I think this book is a good messaging tool for people that are going through anything in their lives that might be difficult or hard
Absolutely.
health-wise. So, James, if you want to put that slide up one more time, and
Sure.
as we close out the show, I want to say a great thank you to the great Brian Propp, Mr. Playoff. Thank you, sir, for coming on and speaking with us and giving us some insight into not only your career, but the Philadelphia Flyers right now and on your recovery from your stroke.
Thanks, Joe. And I know that I love life every day. I'm happy to be alive and kicking.
Yep.
Roger. Amen, my friend. Thanks a lot, Brian. We really do appreciate it, buddy.
All right.
So for Brian Propp, I'm Joe Marks. That's James Scourge. We're the Pattison Ave Sports Show. And join us next time on April 11th. We will have the Hollis Thomas, former Philadelphia Eagles player, for a great interview talking all things birds and talking all things NFL draft coming up. So once again, for James, for Brian Propp, and for myself, we're the Pattison Ave Sports Show. We'll see you next time.
0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
Pattison